Hello, and welcome back to the Novice Lumberjack, where we're going to talk about crank stuffers. But, I'm in a tizzy, man. It's been busy. It's been busy like crazy. I had to make a quick trip back home to Kentucky. The weather's crappy. My little desk here, or whatever you want to call it, is a mess. All that stuff. But if you hang in to the end, you get a surprise. I've got something, well, I've got a surprise. There you go. But what I want to talk about is case volume and crank stuffers. There we go. There's a crank. Let me grab a couple cases. Alright, I've yet to clean these things up. They're dirty, filthy, blah, blah, blah. There's a crankshaft right here. I hope y'all can make that out real nice. What you see is you've got these things right here. These are called your journals. The journals. And it just is what it is. This is a crank. Crank stuffers fill in this spot to create an actual 360-degree circle, right? All the way around like this. Now, mostly they're going to be made out of lightweight material. They're going to be made out of polyurethane, I believe. I believe they are. But what you have to have is a way for them to kind of snap on or get attached on. I think. Now, listen, I could be out of my mind with this. They could be a complete circle, and you've just got an insert there that gets filled in, very similar to your lightweight bars, like your Sugihara and your Sumara lightweight bars, where they have that polymer that, or the polymer that's the plastic that's actually injected into it. Whatever. I don't want to get into the weeds in thinking what it is made out of. What I want to talk about is why they are a thing on any level, really. Why? Well, this is your crankcase. These two halves go together. Ooh, come on. Come on. There we go. There we go. Now that right there has a certain volume. There's a certain amount of fluid or air that it could hold, right? So that is your actual crank case. These right here are your engine cases, or your case halves, but that is your actual crank case. Now, what is specific about this is whenever you are drawing in your air and fuel mixture through your carburetor, it goes into the crankcase first. And that's what lubes your crankshaft. These bearings right here, and your rod bearing. So all of that fuel and air needs to go into the crankcase first so that you can get lube. And seeing how there is a very specific volume there, let's say that would hold a half a cup. Right? I don't know. Now, how much do you think it'd hold? Is it going to hold the same half cup? Absolutely not. You're taking up space in your crankcase with the crank. So, in adding stuffers, which instead of just having the journals here at the bottom, stuffers fill in this area right here. to eliminate or minimize the crankcase volume. So, what's the point of stuffers? Crank stuffers are to minimize your crankcase volume. Now, you might look at that and think, well, isn't that a bad thing? Shouldn't you want as much volume as possible? Well, right here's your piston and cylinder. Boop. Now this piston and this cylinder setup can only bring in as much as its actual displacement. This is a 60 cc setup, so it can only bring in 60 cc's of volume, air-fuel mixture ratio. Now, I didn't have to say ratio, that was kind of redundant. An air-fuel mixture. 60 cc's worth. Right? You with me? Get that back in here. So, in contrast to what a lot of people think about porting and polishing their cylinders, you absolutely cannot get more than 60 cc's worth of volume on a 60 cc piston and cylinder setup. You can't do it. The only way that you could possibly get more volume than 60 cc's is if you have a turbo, an actual turbo, not a Johnson Red or an air injections from Husqvarna. An actual turbo or supercharger, something to cram, to force the air-fuel mixture in at a higher pressure. Now, since we are working off the laws of physics, and this is not exactly a pump, what it is it is an air displacement system. It displaces air. And remember in the last video I was talking about, I think it was the last video, I was talking about how all around us we have 14.7 psi pushing on us. It's just like being in water, guys. It's just like being in water. The deeper you go, the more pressure gets put on you from the water that is surrounding you. Now, a fish lives in that environment. Do they know that they're being pushed on every which way? No, they don't. But do humans know? Absolutely. Whenever you go down, dive deep, you can feel the pressure on you. And that's why with scuba diving, you have to have there's calculations where if you go down deep, you need to go up very slowly so you can decompress because you've been compressed. Same thing happens in air, in the atmosphere. The exact same thing happens. It's just a little bit, well, it's less pressure. So the higher we get up in altitude, the less pressure is on us. And so down here at the bottom on flat land, we're looking at roughly 14.7 psi pushing all around us. And so whenever the piston moves up and down, it displaces air, which causes a void of that 14.7 psi. And that's how the air flows in and out. And because all we're doing is creating a void of the pressure that's around us, you can understand that you can't force anything in that cylinder. So every bit of your port and polishing is just to get it to flow faster, to get it to flow without restrictions. So, now, back to the crankcase. I hope y'all are getting this. Constitution Mule, I think that's you, Pete. Maybe not. I could be wrong with that. I hope you're getting it too, buddy. He's wanting me to give it in small bites. I can't really do that. Engines, basic knowledge of engines, here you go. You suck in air and fuel, you compress it, you ignite it, boom, explosion, sends the piston down, come back up, do it all over again. That's a basic engine. Anything more than that, it's going to be complex. Engines are complex, and I think especially a two-stroke, because with a four-stroke, you're dealing with absolute mechanics, things that it has to go that way. Whereas a two-stroke is more of a balance issue. So, anyways, a four-stroke is like a car that has four wheels. It's planted. Things have to happen. A two-stroke is kind of like a unicycle, honestly. You're just like, whoa, whoa, constantly teetering where to find that balance to make this thing perform optimally. Anyways, back to it, crank stuffers. So now that we know, right, we know that whatever our piston and cylinder is, they can only pull in that amount of volume. Now, the system, the setup that I have right here is 60 cc's. Do you think I'm ever pulling in 60 cc's of air-fuel mixture? No, never. I'm never pulling in a full 60 cc's. Pressure drops happen, and whenever pressure drops, the size of the air changes. And so at atmospheric pressure, it would be impossible for me to pull in the atmospheric volume of the full 60 cc's. That's why porting makes a difference. Oh God, it's getting deep here, man. It's getting deep. Sorry. I'm trying to break it. I'm trying to make it more simple than that, because porting and polishing makes a huge difference. But you cannot force more volume in. You can't do it. All you can do is get it to flow either more easily without restrictions or faster. And that is the meat of this video and what crank stuffers do. Crank stuffers are found on very high performance saws, usually smaller saws, like your 550 XP. The 550 XP, I'm almost certain, has crank stuffers. The 545 does not have crank stuffers. So what your crank stuffers do for you, do they change the amount of fuel and air that your piston can pull into it? No, they don't change the amount of air. What they do is they speed it up. And in speeding it up, making higher velocity air and fuel mixture coming into your cylinder means that you can have more RPMs, which is exactly why your 550 XP Mark II is a screaming demon. It's because it can get that air in quickly at a high velocity, allowing it to get higher RPMs. And part of that is done, in part, with crank stuffers. Now, a lot of people don't like crank stuffers. They would rather have the volume. And that's fine. You know, it all depends on what you're doing. If you're building a saw to turn 15,000 RPMs, then you probably are going to want to have crank stuffers. Or at least crank stuffers would make your goal more achievable. It would help in getting higher RPMs. Do they increase power? Probably, I mean, maybe a little bit. They probably definitely don't increase torque, but they definitely increase RPM, because with less dead space to pull from, then there's less chances of creating suction and more chances of creating flow. Whew. I hope y'all are getting this. And I hope I'm right. I can be wrong. I can be wrong, and I'm fine with that. If I'm wrong, here's the way to do it. Say, hey man, I don't think it works out that way. I think that you're misguided with this or whatever. Don't be a douchebag and go, this guy's a fucking idiot. Because I'm not a fucking idiot. I'm pretty damn good with this stuff. I'm with Charlie on this. Charlie Briscoe. I loved your video where you kept saying, I'm not about tearing people down. There is no point in that whatsoever. We all have things that we can learn, and we all have things that we can teach. Right now, I'm trying to teach you what I know about crank stuffers. Am I the end-all, be-all authority on crank stuffers? Hell no. But I do understand them. And what their job is to decrease the volume of the crankcase. That way, whenever your piston's moving up and down, and it's displacing air, there's less dead space. Imagine it this way. And this is going to be funny, you guys make fun of me, go, oh man, I like the way you suck. Whatever, I don't care. This bag, all right, has got a certain amount of volume to it, just like your crankcase does. Well, whenever I want to pull the air out of this, right, there's a certain amount of air. Whereas if we put a bunch of things in there to take up the space, then we wouldn't have to pull so much before it immediately went into a real nice vacuum. See? So by adding crank stuffers, probably got stuff all, by adding crank stuffers, whenever your piston is displacing air and creating flow, the flow is not wasted on dead space in your crankcase. The flow goes directly to your carburetor and it just gets things started quicker. Whereas without the crank stuffers, it's more like, with the crank stuffers, it immediately gets that fuel and air charge up to the top of your piston where you can have a nice explosion and create a bang and power. So, there you go. Now, maybe you know a little bit more about crank stuffers and why they are put on high performance applications where you are desiring maximum RPM. Now, again, I guess I should point out that in a chainsaw, they're so small anyways that that you're really kind of, getting a little nitpicky with it, you know? But throttle response, zing, 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 crank stuffers. Not so much throttle response, ring, ring. That has no crank stuffers. So that's what we get with crank stuffers. All right, now, I said there was going to be a surprise. And boy, is there. Oh, isn't that frickin' sweet? This is the Binford Bad Boy. I've kind of dropped the Binford thing because, I don't know, kind of feels like I'm making a joke, and I don't want this thing to be a joke. But check it. I'll grab the camera here in a second and go all around it. Now these stickers, I've been working with a small business close by, trying to get the sizing perfect for these Polans, and this is a test run. So these stickers are the cheap kind that won't last. They're just regular vinyl. I mean, they look cool, but they are not the real deal. The real deal needs to be able to withstand being turned on the sticker and everything like that. So the real deal stickers are like going to be made out of an aluminum probably, or at least some really thick vinyl. But anyways, this is it. And let me show you. So, BPS, guess what that stands for? Bodie's Power Saws. I like the Pro on there. Right here it says, if you can't start it, you don't get to play with it. Couldn't come up with anything better. That's kind of dorky, I know, but groovy. What movie involves a chainsaw does this quote come from? Pretty cool, eh? So anyways, yeah. We're still not ready for the complete reveal yet, but for you guys that hang in there and are kind of my go-to guys, my subscribers that always watch everything, I think I got about 250 or so of y'all. Maybe more. But anyways, pretty cool. I dig this saw. It's really fun for me. I really like it. And I hope you do too. So I've rambled enough in this video. Did I say it's cold and nasty and rainy and I don't really want to get out and do anything? I did. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Technical Tuesdays. Man, yesterday, my Modified Mondays, I screwed up on the creation of the video. I think I picked some format that made it really a big file, and it took forever to both create the video as well as upload it. So that's why it didn't come out until like, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night or something. But whatever. I still managed to make it on Monday, so so far so good. I've been sticking with it and I have been able to release the videos. But you know, schedule gets hectic and everything, and anyways, I gotta go work on tomorrow's whack-off video, and hopefully you like this one, and hopefully you'll like the next one too, the whack-off video tomorrow. See ya.